So Gigabyte just had the issue with the exploding power supplies, and then their RMA servers got hacked, and that's causing all sorts of problems, which is why when I bought the Gigabyte Aorus Elite, that's what it's called, right? Motherboard for my X570 platform, because I want to get that 5950X build going, I had a lot of comments saying, really, are you going to go with Gigabyte? Yeah, I decided to go with Gigabyte because, for one thing, it had the features I wanted, the price was right, and while I did have concerns about the RMA possibilities, I thought odds are I'm not going to need to. And if you're thinking this video is going to be like, ha, he has to RMA his board. Actually, no, this is a completely other issue, but it's like Gigabyte, just, if you got all these other issues going on, you need to get everything else right. And what this is the worst time I've ever had trying to update the BIOS on a motherboard, which, well, it isn't something I do every day. This is not my first time doing that. And I would say that while there are people who are more expert at computer stuff than me, I'm definitely above the just average computer user. And this thing just about stumped me. I mean, I finally got there, but Gigabyte, please. So basically I started off with the simple version of you just download the file, you open your BIOS, and you flash to the new one. Except it said it couldn't read the file. So I tried installing the file in different locations, couldn't read the file. I tried actually reading online on their website and instructions and third-party sites, how am I supposed to update the BIOS on a Gigabyte motherboard? And I was doing everything right, so I was not actually doing anything wrong. So then I tried actually downloading a different version of the BIOS. I was like, maybe this one isn't working. So I instead of getting the latest one, got a slightly older one, and that one also couldn't read the file. So then I started Google searching this issue, like Gigabyte BIOS update, can't read file. And tons of people were reporting this problem, although they apparently had a different problem than me, or else they found a solution that didn't work for me. So I guess for a lot of people, they were able to, in the BIOS, when they're selecting the file, the issue was when they click the right arrow to move to the next step, it couldn't read the file. But if they actually just double-clicked on the file, then it worked. Now, that didn't work for me, so apparently there's more than one problem happening here with updating the BIOS, and I hope this isn't widespread. Maybe I'm just unlucky. I don't know. Like I said, I tried various versions of the BIOS, and finally I was like, okay, whatever. I know that there's some kind of Gigabyte app that lets you do this, and at least I had heard that somewhere, and sure enough, I Googled for it, and they do have a BIOS app where you can update the BIOS from within Windows. And I was like, cool, okay. So I Googled it, and I found a link to a page on their site that had that app, but when I clicked to actually download it, nothing downloaded. So I Googled again, and I found a different page that seemed a little more up to date that had a link to the app. And that one actually did download, but it said you're supposed to download their App Center too. So now I have to download the Gigabyte App Center, and now this loads on startup, so I'm gonna have to remember to uninstall all this junk now that I don't need it anymore. But anyway, so that that at least can open the BIOS app. So I open the BIOS app, and there's a few little tabs there. It tells me the one I'm on, and it has like an online updater thing. So I was like, hey, let's see if it can just do it automatically. So I try the online updater thing. It has a bunch of different servers. One of them's in the US. I try that one. Error. Well, let's try the one in Japan. Error. Let's try the one in Taiwan. Error. Let's try the one in China. Error. By the way, they weren't all the same error, so I don't know what's going on with that. But anyway, okay, online update thing, not working fine. There's a utility to point it to the file that I've already downloaded, so I point it to the file. I try to run the program. It says, error. You need the latest version of the BIOS app. And I'm like, I literally just downloaded off your website, Gigabyte. But I went back to the App Center thing, and I went check for updates. And it did find an update to the BIOS app. So I click install updates, and then I notice it's installing antivirus on my computer. Why is it doing that? So stop, cancel, I don't want that. Double check what's happening. Apparently their App Center thing is set to automatically check the box to install third-party apps, which currently includes Norton Antivirus. And I don't want that. So it's just, anyway, so I uncheck that box, then I install the update to the BIOS thing, and okay, it updates fine. I go back to the BIOS app. I go back to I actually, now that it was updated, tried the online servers again. Sure enough, went through all of them, different error report every time, but they don't work. Then I went, okay, point it back to the file. So this time, I point it to the file, I get an error again. I tried re-downloading that file again and installing it in different locations, made sure it was unzipped. I pointed it to all the different files within the actual folder to make sure I was selecting the correct one, and none of them worked. And then finally I decided to download an older version of the BIOS again. Well, I guess I already had it downloaded from when I tried that earlier. So I pointed it to the older version of the BIOS, and that one did finally update. Thank goodness. So I'm at least updated to a almost current version of it. The one that isn't installing is one that says it's like actually getting it ready for Windows 11. So the good news is I'm not updated to Windows 11 yet, especially because the reason I'm trying to update the BIOS right now anyway is because I want to work on overclocking my 5950X, and the older versions of the BIOS don't, I think, have the newer version of PBO, and then like the curve optimizer and all of that. Anyway, so expect a video about that in the future, assuming that it actually works now that I've updated the BIOS, because I'm filming this just to rant about it as soon as I finish trying to do this installation. By the way, I did check if there were more updates available to the BIOS app, and there weren't, but every time I checked for updates, it did make sure to automatically select Norton Antivirus again. Now, at least it did find a newer chipset driver for AMD, so I got that out of the way and not having to do that separately from AMD, so hey, good job, Gigabyte. Anyway, I'm gonna get over to uninstalling that junk off of my computer, and Gigabyte, I trusted you. And I mean, your hardware is actually working, but if you're having all these other issues, let's try to make sure you're just really on top of your game. And if, like, it's one thing if just installing the BIOS wasn't working, but when you tried to install Norton on my computer without asking me, shame on you, Gigabyte. All right, am I just overreacting over nothing? I think that was a really frustrating process. I hope all of you, though, have an excellent day.